All right, we should be live here with some guests, and I'm going to open up the chat box. And if you're there and just want to make a comment and let us know that you're there, just say who you are, where you're from. That would be awesome, so we know who we're talking to. Let's see, we've got some people in here. And so we've got a presentation prepared. You'll see there are 5 of us here today. We operate really like a team through the transaction process. Our goal today is to give everybody who's here a little bit of insight into what the home selling process looks like, specifically what it might look like for somebody during this this season of the coronavirus and social distancing or physical distancing, as they're saying. And so we've got some stuff that we're going to take you guys through. A couple of really interesting things just to open this up with, and I'd invite our panel to chime in on this. You know, initially when this started, there was a real groundswell of kind of uncertainty, right? None of us really knew how exactly we were going to be proceeding through this. And, you know, it's crazy for me to think that that was really just about 6 or 7 weeks ago, that the world kind of flipped upside down. And since then, what I have found amazing, and I want to give tons of kudos to all of you guys who are here, everyone on this call, particularly these panelists, have adapted. And I would say, while it's certainly not business as usual, we are definitely in the process of transacting business. And I've been in real estate for, it's coming up on 13 years. I am so freaking proud of our industry right now, of kind of how we've adapted, how people have risen to the occasion, how people have really serviced their clients during what can be, you know, some of the most stressful. Number one, it's just stressful buying and selling homes, period. But to do it in a time like this, I've never felt better about what it is that myself, my industry, the professionals that I work with, the service that we provide. I've never felt more confident, and I've always been confident in what we do. But right now, especially, I really, really value those relationships that I have, those professional service providers, particularly you guys. And I just wanted to open up with that. Any thoughts on that, guys, as we get this thing started? You know, what have you witnessed? I mean, what are some of the things that you've experienced in the last 6 or 7 weeks around your business and around getting into business? I know I kind of threw this at you, but I'm just curious. I think it's a really cool kind of topic.
Matt, what I'm impressed is that since we started this right when Corona hit, in the very, very beginning, if you remember, we had that seminar, Nobody in our industry has complained. They've just thought of ways to move forward. People like Jason and Ryan, everybody. I haven't heard anybody say I can't do it. It's how I'm going to do it. It's just sort of pretty bad. I don't know about you, but I haven't seen any negativity.
No, it's been fascinating. I mean, really the biggest thing, somebody asked me this question the other day. They said, what was the most, you know, what's changed the most? And frankly, the thing that's changed the most is not the service to the client has actually remained spot on. If anything, I think it may have even improved because we are now communicating and using technology in ways we never used to, at least not as a matter of tradition, right? It wasn't the typical way we did it. And so there's such heightened communication. There's so much heightened information going back and forth. And I think that that's an advantage that we're going to take from now forever. I don't think it ever goes back. The biggest thing that's changed is really how we get into new relationships with clients. That's really the biggest thing. It's just because we're not doing, you know, traditional open houses with people walking through them. We're not meeting people and doing consultations. So we're doing a lot more of this kind of stuff, which has been, again, I'm just incredibly proud of our industry. I'm proud of how they've rolled together. I'm proud of all of our vendor partners and how they've come together. And I just wanted to open up with that because I think it really does at this point, you know, February 29th, is it 29th, 28th? Or not February. I said February. See that? I'm going a little crazy.
You're stuck in that time.
I'm definitely going a little crazy. There's a little bit of being stuck, but you know, April 28th, I think today is April 28th. It is, it's just amazing to me that it was just mid-March, really 6 weeks ago, when it really started to shift, when they started to shut schools down. And, you know, we didn't know what we were walking into. Was it a zombie apocalypse? Were grocery stores going to be closed? You know, people were hoarding toilet paper. And to kind of land where we are, which is in this kind of new normal of moving forward, it's really pretty amazing. And now the weather's getting nice, right? So a lot of good stuff. So, so with that said, again, guys, those of you that are here and in attendance, I'm going to encourage you to put your questions in the chat box on the bottom. As we go through this, we will have time to answer all of your questions. Anything is a good question because we've got some of the best and the best brains in the industry here to work with us today. So we want to make sure that we answer whatever you came here and hope to get answered for you. So I am going to, for just a moment here, I'm going to open up our presentation and I'll get us started. So bear with me. So you should be seeing a presentation. Somebody say, yes, I see it. Yeah.
On the left-hand side, right?
Right. Do we see selling your home in today's market? Does everybody see that?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Fantastic. That's what we should be looking at. So, all right. So here's what we're going to do today. As I said, we're going to talk a little bit through what the home selling process looks like, and really try to give anybody who's here and watching this, whether you're with us live or you're watching in the reruns, would love to, we want to give you an insight and perspective on all of the different things that go into the process of selling your home, literally from the first day that you decide that you want to do that, all the way through to what you need to know about mortgage, what you need to know about legal, what you should know about your insurance, about prepping your home for sale. And we've got the experts here to walk us through that. So I'm going to make some quick introductions. We do have Jason Kilduff here from Ward Kilduff Mortgage. Jason has been a vendor partner with the Miele team for well over a decade. And he's going to talk to you guys specifically about what happens in the mortgage process when you are on the sell side. We've got attorney Richard Witt. Richard, again, a guy that I've known for over a decade, one of the best attorneys in our area, and just an exceptional talent when it comes to understanding all of the things that you need to know as you prepare your home for sale. From a legal perspective. Ryan Keating joins us from the Keating Agency. He's going to talk to us about what are some of the most important things to prepare for from an insurance standpoint. And of course, Melissa Mazinski, who's really what everybody came here for. I know that to be the truth. Everybody really wants, Melissa, what it is. Everybody asks me when they call, the first thing they ask me, which I think is hysterical, is they always call and they say, hey, Matt, we're thinking about selling. We want you to come over and tell us what we need to do. And I always say, no, you don't. You don't want me to tell you what you need to do. I'll get you the marketing. I'll prepare your home. But you want somebody like Melissa to come over and tell you what to do, because Melissa's really got the style and design dialed in. So we're going to run through that agenda here today. So first and foremost, I just made an introduction. You guys know who we are. So my name's Matt Miele. I've been in the sales and service business literally since I was, a teenager. I bought my first home when I was 19 years old. I've been in and around real estate for most of my career. I started a real estate team in 2010. And our team is really dedicated toward, we kind of have a multi-pronged mission around what we do. It's not just about selling homes for us. I built the team and built the company so that we could have an impact in our community. And most specifically, we could have an impact in the state. As we've rebounded here in the state of Connecticut and seen, the impact of some economic challenges that have run through our communities, one of the things that always became obvious to me that in order to change it, in order to create more opportunities and create more jobs, we had to be a participant in it. And I had this incredibly, I feel incredibly blessed to have the opportunity to build a business and employ people here in our state. And our mission statement at the Miele team is we empower people, the people we serve and those we serve with. And we do that through the vehicle of real estate. But our mission is to leave the people that we serve and the people that we work with empowered through the process. So that's a little bit about us. So let me tell you guys what's going to happen if you decide you want to sell your home, because that's really what you came here for. This is sort of a process that sets the expectations for anyone that might think that they would like to sell a home in today's climate. Now, the first thing that's going to happen is, and I encourage anybody that's out there that's thinking about selling their home to consult with a real estate agent. Obviously, to sell a home, there is no legal requirement to work with a real estate agent. But just like anything else that you would do, you would want to get a professional to help guide you through that process. So I often make the analogy that, even though there's no law that says that you can't do a knee replacement on your own knee, it probably makes sense to get a knee surgeon who's done hundreds and hundreds of surgeries like that, because they're simply going to be better at it, better equipped. They're going to have the right tools, the right, the things that will prevent you from getting into some kind of trouble. So the first thing that you really want to do before you get into selling your home is consult with a realtor. Many people will choose to consult with more than one, and I actually encourage that as well. There are, on average, about 160,000 real estate transactions in the state of Connecticut every year. So there are plenty of transactions out there, and there are plenty of real estate agents. There's about 3,500 licensed real estate agents that are members of the Greater Hartford Board of Realtors. And there's a right realtor for you. And the right thing to do is get yourself aligned with a real estate agent who really does understand what your needs are and is going to take the time to help you solve whatever problem you're trying to solve. I talk about that because people don't buy and sell houses just for the sake of doing it. It's a pretty, it can be an unsettling process. It's not an easy thing to do. There's a lot of stress involved. And so you're usually trying to solve some life event. Either you want a bigger home, or you want to have a nicer home, or you want to downsize, or it's time for you just to relocate out of the area. No matter what the situation is, you want to make sure that the real estate agent that you're working with has a really, really clear understanding of what goals you're trying to accomplish. And that just comes from having an initial meeting and a walkthrough with a realtor. Whether you do that with one or two is totally up to you, but I would encourage you to make sure that you have that conversation. Part of that pre-listing process, once you've selected an agent that you feel really, really comfortable with, part of that is going to be discussing market value and also discussing how to prepare your home for its best possible condition when you put it on the market. And why that's important is that a lot of people will call a real estate agent and say, I want to know the value of my home. And this is really, really key to understand if you're thinking about selling, have never done it before. Real estate agent will not have the power to determine what your house will sell for. They will have the knowledge, information, and experience to give you a really, really good idea of what your house will sell for. But real estate agents are not in control of what the price will be for your home. In fact, the buyer is. Buyers are the ones that determine what the ultimate value of the home is, because they're the ones that are prepared to write the check. So during the pre-listing process, you're going to have these strategic conversations with your real estate agent about how to prepare your home, how to put it in the best possible condition, and what the advantages are of pricing your home at various different levels. Once you've selected a real estate agent and you hire them, that's when you'll go into the pre-listing phase of the property. And that's where you will put have a stager come in, someone like Melissa that will come in and guide you through what to do in each room, how to decorate. You'll have your photography taken care of to make sure that you have the best possible presentation of your house, and that will go on the market. And then when it goes on the market, which is when you become an active listing, that's where you'll start to see the real estate agent start to market your home for you. This is also when showings happen, and it bears noting that even now in the era of the coronavirus, showings are still happening. They're happening with safe practices, gloves, masks. They're happening so that people can feel safe to show their home, but showings are happening. Open houses also happen during your active listing phase. And this is really where what I call the active listing phase is really the data collection phase of the listing. See, inside of this, what we're really trying to do as a good real estate agent is we're trying to get our sellers as much information as we can so that they can make good decisions about selling their home at whatever moment in time they decide to sell. So here's what that means. If we list a home at a certain price and no showings happen, or let's say very few showings happen during that active listing period, that is actually data and information that you as a home seller need to hear from your real estate agent about what it means, because it all means something. If you list your home for sale at a certain price and you get 10 showings in the first day and 5 offers, that also means something. It means that your house is priced at a certain level where you may actually be able to take advantage of getting more money. All of that is why you want to have an experienced real estate agent who's been through all of these different processes with many, many clients to give you the right guidance around how to respond to that. Because your online and print marketing that's going to be ongoing is going to drive people to come and look at your property. You're going to have showings. You're going to have open houses, and people are going to attend your open houses. And then you're going to have all of this information that's going to come from that process. And that information is where you as the seller are going to make the best decision for you. The best thing is, the best phone calls that we as agents get to make generally is when we have an offer on a property for our client and we've listed it at a certain price and an offer's come in, and we know that that offer is something that's going to make our client happy. And that ultimately is the goal behind listing your home. Excuse me. So when we've received an offer, you will go through that offer with your real estate agent. They'll give you all they'll walk through each section of the offer, describe in detail what the terms and conditions are inside of the offer, explain what mortgage contingencies may be, what inspection contingencies may be, and really kind of give you full and complete insight into what it is that you're accepting. And then of course you get to the closing table, which is everybody's goal. That's a really high level overview of what to expect from the listing process. So, and by the way, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box. So people always ask, and one of the reasons we like to keep this slide in here is, what makes a house sell? Why does one house sell very, very rapidly and another house doesn't? Why do sometimes houses that don't look like they're that great sell really quickly, and some houses that are amazing stay on the market for a long time? Well, it's really this confluence of a multitude of different things. And you'll see here, it's how it's priced, how the property shows, the actual condition of it, how it's marketed, and of course, the ongoing communication from your real estate agent to the agents that have shown the property. When you are hiring an agent, what you're hiring is you're hiring an advocate, and that their advocacy is not only to you as the seller, but it's for your property. You hire a real estate agent to go out and advocate to a potential buyer why this particular property might be the right property for them. So all of these different things come together to create the best possible outcome for you as a seller in order to give you the best chance to get your house to sell. There's a couple other things though that are on here, and this is important because what you're looking at in these 4 things, these are the 4 things that you as a seller and your real estate agent have control over. But there's a big but in this. There are lots and lots of things that influence a house sale that have nothing to do with, and that you have no control over. Things like a national or international pandemic, or things like interest rates in the marketplace, things like inventory on the market. These are all things that will drive prices up or down, that will influence how your house shows, not just as a standalone property, but in comparison to the other properties, and how you would market the property. If you're in a very active buyer's market where there are lots and lots and lots of homes for sale and very few buyers, you have to market your property differently than if you're in a seller's market where there's very few homes for sale and lots of buyers. So all of those external influencers are also really critical to understand. And again, another reason why you want to have a really good advocate and a really good real estate agent to help give you insight, not only into the things that you can control, but also the things that you can't. So we obviously, on our team, I like to just include this just so you understand, we have, very, very broad exposure online, offline, through multiple social media platforms, listing portals, search engines. Quite frankly, the industry has really, really changed into an online communications industry. And I think that even more so through what's happened over the last 6 to 7 weeks, we're even more in that environment now, where so much of the activity that's happening between a buyer and a seller and a real estate company is happening through an online environment. And, quite frankly, the tools themselves are not unique. So it's very rare that any one particular real estate agent has some special online platform. It's really how they use it, right? It would be like hiring a carpenter. And if that carpenter came to your house because they were going to build you a deck, and they said, well, I build the best decks because I have a saw and I have a hammer. Well, you would expect that all carpenters would have a saw and a hammer. It's how they use the saw and the hammer that you really want to get to understand. So real estate agents, again, most of the companies that are out there, the large reputable companies, Keller Williams, Berkshire Hathaway, William Ravis, Coldwell Banker, they're all going to have some tremendous tools available to help you market your property. And, you really want to, when you interview your real estate agent, what you really want to do is try to understand how do they use them? What are the things that they do that make them different? So it's just an important kind of a note on that. So, Jason, you're here with us, correct?
I am.
Jason Kilduff here. Awesome. So, Jay, if you wouldn't mind, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience here, and let them know what should a seller be thinking about around mortgages. Somebody that's selling is most likely going to be buying something. So, what are the important things for them to be thinking about?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, they should have a conversation, right? We should talk about, best possible outcome versus, what's not the best possible outcome. Meaning, if the house sells at this number, if it sells at that number, if interest rates climb while they're in the process of selling, right? So we're going to talk about a broad range of payment options, what's available from a financing perspective, a timeline for the sale, where they are in that process. We're going to also thoroughly look through the credit and ensure that everything's fine there, or if there are a couple things that we can maneuver to get the credit score to pop up a few points, which might actually save them a considerable amount of money on the purchase. We're going to look at that too. It's never really too early to give the mortgage lender a call when you're thinking about selling your house.
So do you think, does it make sense for somebody who's going to be selling their home to have a mortgage conversation, even though they might be 3 or 4 months out before they're even listing their home?
Absolutely, because we want to make sure that they're set up to obtain the best possible terms and conditions that are available on the market.
Is there anything that a seller should watch out for, like, as when they're listing their home, that could influence their mortgage?
Well, we always say, when we go through the pre-qualification process and we determine the maximum amount that the banks will lend, right, which is typically more than what most people want to borrow, right? So we'll go through the maximum the bank will lend, where you're comfortable, and then we always go through the normal conversation of it's not really a wise idea to go buy a new car, take out any additional debt, anything that might affect the credit while we're in this process in between selling your home and buying another home.
What are some things that people do? Like, to me, I think, like, well, if somebody goes and buys a new home, they usually need to get furniture and stuff like that. But you're saying they should probably hold off on that kind of stuff.
Right. Any sort of credit related inquiries, right, will affect your credit score, whether you obtain credit or not.
Now, sometimes one thing that comes up all the time, Jay, and maybe you can speak to this. A lot of people will come to us and say, I'd really like to buy my house first before I sell because I need to get my stuff out. Like, I know, for one, I have 3 kids and they're all under the age of 13, right? And my house is really tough to get it in show condition. Melissa can probably speak to that at some point, right? The toys are out, the homework pads are everywhere, and like keeping up with that is really tough. Is it possible? Can people get a mortgage on buying a home before they sell their own?
Sure, absolutely. They do have to qualify carrying both payments.
So they have to make sure that their income can support both payments.
Correct.
So what about, sometimes I've heard about these things called bridge loans. Do those exist anymore? Is that still out there?
That's really where you're tapping into your equity to use that as a down payment, right? So most people will do that through a line of credit.
So do people do that? Doesn't that affect wouldn't that affect your ability to buy another house or?
That will, right? So you'd want to talk to definitely the lender that's handling your new purchase before going that route.
So if I wanted to sell my home, but I didn't want to sell it before I bought the next one, but I needed the equity out of it, I might be able to afford to borrow equity out of my existing home, go buy the next home, and then sell my home and pay that off.
Right. Those debts will be paid off. Anything that's attached to your current primary residence that you're selling will be paid off when you sell it. But there is a way to get the equity out if needed for the down payment on the new one, if you wanted to buy before you sell.
That's great. I have another question here, and I think it's a really good, timely one. Melissa is asking, if a seller is in forbearance, what are the restrictions to purchase another home? So, for instance, like right now, there was a lot of people were offering forbearance. A lot of mortgage companies were offering that to stem the impact of COVID. What if somebody took a forbearance and they otherwise have perfect credit, have never missed a payment, but now they want to go buy a home and they're going to sell their home, but it's currently in forbearance. How does that impact?
Well, you know what? Believe it or not, there hasn't been any true guidance on that.
Okay.
Official guidance. Okay.
Yeah.
The forbearance, right, is allowable, right? You're not allowed to hinder it, but there should be a reason why a person, if you're in forbearance, there's a reason why you should have taken that, right? So either you're laid off or you're having problems. It's not for lack of a better term, it's not just a way for people to take advantage of taking a vacation from their payment, right?
Okay.
When they can normally afford it.
Okay.
Right? So the people that are qualified should be making their payments as usual. If something happened with your employment or your income, the likelihood is you're not going to be able to qualify for a new mortgage while you're currently laid off.
Well, that's an interesting point. So you're basically saying if somebody's taken forbearance, it's a high probability that it was as a result of some interruption in income, which would otherwise prevent them from getting a mortgage anyway.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe in some cases, I mean, I guess, again, just talking out loud, there could be a situation where somebody was temporarily laid off or was furloughed from a job or something like that. Can you get a mortgage if you're in the middle of a furlough?
No, they're going to make sure that you're returned to work.
Okay. That really interesting. So what are some other things, Jay, before we move on? Is there any last words of advice to somebody thinking about selling, and as to how it would, how it would relate to their mortgage and obtaining the next mortgage?
I think you can obviously start at the end game, right? What's your ideal situation? Where do you want to be? What price point, what mortgage payment, what type of house, what town? Start with your end game in mind and kind of work right back to the beginning really fast, right? So we're going to work at what kind of house would you love to live in? What would you like your mortgage payment to be? How quickly do you want to make that move? And then keep going back, obviously until the point where you're getting your house on the market, but prepare from the end all the way back to the listing.
Yeah. Awesome. That's great advice. Thank you, Jay. Really appreciate it. So Rich, you have, I mean, is it even possible for me to assess how many closings you've been? Do you have any idea?
We're doing 31 this week, all through either mail or through Zoom in our parking lot with precautions.
31 through mail and Zoom. And in your career, how many closings do you think you've done? Any way that you could know?
No, it's
thousands, right?
Yeah, thousands. Yes.
So there's gotta, I mean, do you ever come across a situation where you're like, wow, I've never actually seen that before?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You run into that all the time. And that's the purpose of the title search.
Yeah.
We go back 40 plus years and, we run into it all. Half owners, people with IRS liens from 2 owners ago. That's the purpose of, going 40 years plus back on that record search. And it's critical. And if it's a foreclosure, we hire somebody that goes to the courthouse as well. And if it's a bankruptcy previous, we send somebody to the bankruptcy court. So we cover all the bases and do all we can. And then we get sign off from the title companies on top of it. So they're letting us write what's called the policy without exception, which means that even if something arises down the road, they insured it, they'll guarantee it and allow you to sell it. So
tell us a little bit, Rich, about your law practice, and what does a seller need to know about hiring an attorney when they're getting ready to sell their home? What's the most important thing that they should be thinking about?
I think first off, if I hear the word for sale by owner, I shudder because I know I'll be talking to them 3 to 4 months from now. And then
Yeah.
the market will have changed. They'll say, Rich, it's already winter. Why isn't my house sold? And I'll go back to my original speeches. You should have had a realtor to begin with. It would have been sold already because your house is not being shown. And then the for sale by owners who don't want to even offer a partial commission, that's a whole different level.
Yeah.
They're just not being shown at all. So the first thing is to get a great realtor. We always talk about that. Second of all is staging. I have homes that are in incredible areas. I've seen some homes downtown West Hartford, walking distance to the restaurants. You go in the home and they're almost like hoarder homes.
Yeah.
And if they're not hoarder homes, they're disorganized homes. I mean, I have a 7-year-old at home and I sympathize with what Matt's talking about. You got toys lying around, et cetera. But there are certain things that, the stagers can tell you that, it can literally make the difference between your house selling that first week or sitting there for 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 weeks.
I mean, I can't. I'm such a fan of staging and preparing.
Amazing. Amazing.
Such an important part of the process, and obviously having the right team in place in order to help walk through that is critical.
Yeah, Matt, I had a buddy who lived down. He was a single guy, living down in Fairfield, and he was getting relocated to California. And it was a classic bachelor pad. If you saw what this stager did to his home and it sold in the first week, you would never recognize that my friend ever lived there, which is a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, I can totally attest to it. Absolutely. Yeah. So what about, Rich, when you're consulting with a seller, so obviously you say you should hire a real estate agent, right? Get a professional to help you get your house ready to get on the market. But what do you, what are some other things that you tell them? What about from a legal perspective? Like, what should they be looking at?
From a legal perspective, if I see it's a single person coming to me and I know they've been married and the wife or husband's deceased, one thing that's often missed is I always ask them, has your estate been probated before you list that property? I cannot tell you, probably that's the biggest mistake I see on listings. I probably have on any given month at least 7 new sales that come in on a month, maybe 6 to 7, and I have to let them know, hey, you've never probated your estate. We've got to hire somebody to do that. We have an attorney in our office who does that, but it's like there's an added cost. Sometimes the person's deceased for up to 10 years. Now, because they've never probated the estate, the agent goes to the land records and pulls the deed and sees 2 people on the deed with no indication that somebody's passed. Yeah. Especially if people are living out of state and they're asking an agent like Matt to sell their home. How's Matt going to know when he pulls the card, pulls the deed, and there's 2 people on there?
Yeah.
And so the property goes on, and oftentimes the other spouse doesn't say a word. They just list it, and that's the way it goes. That's a big common mistake. Or people are too embarrassed to admit that they may have a lot of liens, and it might be a tight transaction, and they're almost ashamed to tell the realtor and myself that it's going to be tight. And if you tell us up front, we can work something out with you.
That's one of the things that we see sometimes is that, somebody's selling and they're not totally transparent about what the situation is. And we get them through the process only to find out that they've got some debt tied to it or whatever.
Or an IRS lien, or something.
Yeah, or an IRS lien or something. And, really the reality is that there is nothing that can't be navigated.
Absolutely.
Especially when you've got the brain trust of the people that have been through it before. Like, that's one of the things that, being really upfront and honest with both your agent and your attorney is critical. And that's why it's so important. If you're here watching us and wondering, maybe I want to sell, that's the reason that you want to find the right person to represent you so that you can trust them, so that you feel confident that that person is going to advocate for you. Because if you have any doubts about it and you're not going to be honest with them, it's going to make it more difficult. So super important. Rich, one of the questions that I hear a lot, especially from first-time sellers, is, I can't find my deed. What paperwork does somebody need?
They don't need any. They don't need anything. What happens is it's not like a car. We create a brand new deed based off the photographic land records at the town clerk's office. So literally, if that home sells 5 times, there's 5 brand new deeds that are drafted by the attorneys for that transfer. So the minute it's photographed, the town clerk can literally lose it, shred it, lose it in the mail, back to you. We also record the volume and times in your owner's title insurance policy. So it's listed, it's recorded, it's photographed, it's done. That's all we need.
Awesome. Okay. Is there anything that a seller should have? Like, you know, what about mortgage information? Like how do you find out how much money to pay the mortgage? I've experienced that before where somebody thinks it's one amount, but it turns out to be something different.
Oh yeah, that's often the case. You know, people for some reason, Matt, if they get a line of credit, I can't tell you how many times we get their retainer back and they say they have one mortgage. We get it back and they owe $100,000 to Bank of America on a line of credit, which is a mortgage. It's a second mortgage. Yeah. It's worded as a line of credit, but they never knew that there is a lien on their property. Sincerely, they never knew.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want to bring up, which I've been running into a lot, is, and we do it every time we do a title search, and it's mainly running into it with millennials, is covenants in neighborhoods that are recently built, say in the 80s and 90s, where there are restrictions. Things are changing, and believe it or not, there's some, restrictive covenants that don't allow certain types of animals that are now maybe popular now, like chickens, rabbits, might be in the covenants. Yeah. Millennials have, some of them have chickens and some of them have rabbits and different types of animals. And we mail those covenants. They should be disclosed to the listing agent when that house is going up for sale. So the listing agent knows about it and can put it in the MLS. But when we, get that title search, we immediately, talk about it with our seller or talk about it with our buyer and go through that with them line by line. So it's not something that's I've seen it almost terminate a deal at the time of the closing because it was not brought up earlier.
Yeah. So interesting. Thank you. So Rich, where are your offices? You have one?
We have an office in West Hartford Center, right downtown, very close to Mr. Keating's office, probably 5 buildings away. And we have another office right on Route 10 in Plainville. And those are 2 locations. And we have a title office in Fairfield, which is available to us at any time.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
I got a couple questions here for you specifically. One is, are there any legal issues for someone that built their home? Is there anything specific if it's a new construction home?
Yeah, very, very important, because if it's a standalone lot, there's usually not any problems as long as you have your certificate of occupancy and you've done everything with permits. If everything was issued at the time of the construction, you're fine. What we run into, however, is sometimes a developer will farm out 2 or 3 lots just to get seed money to put the road in. And in the restrictive covenant says that that builder has to have approved that plan. You have to make sure that that builder is still around 5-10 years later when you want to build your home, because that plan approval is required or you're not going to build your home. I had one where I represented a developer and we were spinning off a lot, and we asked for months for the plans and specs from the future buyer. We got to the closing table, Matt, and I know you're not going to, I may have told you the story, but we found the plans at the closing table. They're going to build a sphere, a little rounded home, like a mid-century sphere home in a neighborhood of colonials. And my builder got up, denied approval at the closing table, and we didn't close.
Wow.
So
yeah,
those are the things you have to, and unpermitted work. Sometimes spot builders will cut corners. They'll get things approved. They'll get you to close, and then they don't do the follow-up. And it might seem minor at the time, like the back stairs, different things that they were supposed to follow up on a punch list. And then it becomes an issue when you try to resell it. And I've had that happen where somebody buys and a year later they go to sell and they never followed up with me. And there's still 12 items on that punch list, which then becomes an issue when they go to sell.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Rich. Appreciate it. All very great info. So, and I've got Donna here had asked us 3 questions. She asked that one. Thank you, Donna, for that question. And also, Jason, she's got a question here related to mortgage. And again, I'm just going to pause and answer her question. She said, what's the time frame to get a mortgage approved now?
We always recommend 30 days.
Okay.
For a mortgage commitment. Can we do it faster? Yes. It really depends on the volume, and it depends on how organized the client is with paperwork, and do they have everything readily available, or do we have to, wait days to get tax returns back from the accountant and things like that. But if everything's available and we can get the documents pretty easily, we could get a mortgage commitment in under 30 days.
Awesome. Okay, that's great to know. Thank you, Jay. Thank you. And Donna, we've got a staging question, but we're gonna, and Melissa, that one's gonna go to you, and she's asked it, but I'm gonna wait until we get to you in your turn here, if that makes sense. So, so Eric, Ryan, excuse me, Ryan, tell us a little bit about what we need to know. First, tell us about you. Tell us about the Keating Agency, and then tell me a little bit about you know, what we need to know about insuring our home as we plan to sell it, and then the home that we plan to buy.
Absolutely. Thank you, Matt. So Keating Agency, we're a family business in West Hartford Center. I was actually looking out the window to see if I could make a stone throw to Richard's office, which there wasn't a fence.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm in your backyard.
You guys can get some cans with some string, and you guys can.
We could communicate, yeah. So my dad, sister, and I, we head up the office in West Hartford, and we have a team in Southington as well. Luckily, on the sales side, insurance is relatively the easiest part. Good clients let us know when they're selling their house, because usually they're looking at another house, but we also have a lot of outbound relocators. So we have a lot of people that are leaving the state that call us, hey, my house sold, we're living in South Carolina or Florida now, we need to cancel our insurance. So on our end, a big part is kind of just, what's the situation? What situation is making you sell your house? Is it a marriage? Is it a divorce? Is it an estate of a family member? I think Richard touched on that briefly before.
Yeah.
And if you are controlling the estate, that would put it into its own insurance policy. So you'd have to actually write a new policy for the estate, as well as sometimes you need to get a bond. So those are some things there, depending on how long it takes to sell that house. And then if you're downsizing or upsizing, so if you're staying local and you have another house on the market that you want to buy, does the closing coincide with the new home, or are you going to have to rent for a little while? But the biggest thing is, if you have your auto insurance tied to your homeowners, there's a policy discount usually associated with that. So you might see a change there, but also if you have a personal umbrella, making sure if you stay in state that is tied together with your new home. But the biggest part is if you're leaving and going out of state, that umbrella might be tied to home auto umbrella bundled package. And then your personal articles like jewelry, engagement rings, watches, electronics as well, or art that has been on your homeowner's policy, those would need their own policy if you've not found one.
That is a really, really good thought. I never thought of that. It never occurred to me that those things being tied together, selling one home could potentially impact that. Actually, it's opened up another question that I have. So if I'm going to be selling my home, what if I've done what we talked about earlier and I bought a new home, I've moved into that new home, and now the home that I own while it's on the market is unoccupied? Do I have to make any changes with my insurance?
So a vacant home, while it's being listed, is going to have a window of about 30 days, 60 days. It's not completely vacant where it's just sitting there. You're actively showing it, and it's not, people are going in and out of it. It's not at risk of people breaking in or damages happening to it, which is what a homeowner's policy covers.
Yeah.
So vacant policies, there is a vacancy policy. So if you have a house that you bought as a flip and you're not going to start work on it for 3 months, 6 months, but you own the house, you would put a vacancy policy on that, or builder's risk policy. There's other policies to get into.
Is that an additional policy? So I live in my home, and let's say I buy a new home and I move with my family. Yep. Because I can't list my home while my kids are here destroying it, right? And I move into a new home, and it's the dead of winter, and my house is on the market for 60 days. It's being shown, but I'm not actively living here. What is do I get an additional policy, a vacancy policy, or do I change my existing homeowner's policy?
So you would have 2 homeowners policies in this case.
Yeah.
You would have your new home,
Yeah.
which with that address, your auto policy would follow and go to that address. So that's where the cars are garaged. So then there would be an individual homeowner's policy on the house for sale.
Okay.
That is where working with an agent and our relationship with underwriters comes into play. Some carriers are more lenient than others, so it would be depending on what company the policy is written with. We also would give a statement sometimes if you think it's going to be a long sales cycle. You know, they're planning on a 60-day, 90-day sales cycle versus house being on the market for 30 days.
Yeah.
But overall, if it's continually being shown, keeping a homeowner's policy would be fine.
Okay. So you're still covered. That's good to know. So what advice would you give to somebody, Ryan? One piece of advice, they're about to list their home. When should they call you and talk to you?
So we like to know if you're selling a house, so we can make a note in our file. The digitization of today's world, we're pretty meticulous with note taking, because this way any team member can look at your file and know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, if you call after the closing, there's a note in there, hey, house has been on the market to be sold. We can put together, it's called an LPR. It's a policy release form that cancels the policy, as well as a lot of times people forget to give us their addresses if they're moving out of state. So really just treating it as a professional relationship, because you're also going to get a pro rata refund depending on how your policy was structured. If you paid in full for the year, you're going to have money coming back. So,
okay. That's important. Okay. Thank you, Ryan. Really appreciate everything that you've added. And I'm going to move on to Melissa here. Melissa, we've got a bunch of questions already teed up for you. So, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us what you do. And you know, Rich and I already sort of set the table about the value of staging. So,
Thank you.
yeah, of course. So what role do you play in the sale, Melissa?
Sure. So I am a professional home stager and an interior designer, and staging is a critical tool in the real estate industry. It really prepares your home at very little cost to get it sold fast and for the highest value possible, as well as appealing to as many potential buyers as well. So do you want me to talk a little bit about the staging process?
Absolutely. I'd love to hear it. Yeah.
Okay, so I work with the Meali team, and what that means is when they have a new listing, I will get a call from one of their team members, and I will reach out to their seller to schedule a staging consultation. So a staging consultation is when I will coordinate a time to go to the property before it's being listed, and I will spend anywhere between an hour up to even 2 hours. It depends how much work is involved, and going room by room with the homeowner and educating them on how they can best stage that space. And they will hear me use the terms a lot. Let's declutter. We all like to collect things from all the years that we've lived in the home, but we really need to make their home feel like an Airbnb rental. I try and explain it as easy as possible to, have a furnished home, neutral colors, that a buyer can see themselves living in it. So we go room by room. I give them tips, recommendations, and sometimes we tackle some of the staging right there. I'll move a coffee table or change where an artwork is, or jump on the counters and take down balances. And then I go back to the office and I type up a very easy to follow report that outlines room by room the improvements that they need to make, recommendations that I have. So it can be a lot of information to take in a short period of time. So that's why I don't have any of my clients take notes. I do all of that, and I just want them to listen to what I have to say and ask questions. So I go back, type it up, I email it to the seller, and I usually follow up a week later, or sometimes later on that day, I'll get texts or calls from the sellers with follow-up questions. Because again, it's a lot to take in at once. And then of course I can FaceTime again or go back out if they need me to. But just, it's such a transformation from going into the house and then having them work through that staging consultation. You could definitely see the improvements and just more clarity in the space,
Yeah.
which really helps a buyer see themselves living in the home.
I hear often from clients, I mean, more than 50% of the time, after they've gone through the staging consultation process and gotten their home in what we call the photo ready condition, often they say, I wish I had done this before. I love my house so much more now. It's actually a really incredible transformation, to your point. And I think what you pointed out, just something else that I want to illustrate for those who are in attendance. We call it staging, and it really, the other key word though is consultation, because people do get a little nervous when I say to them, the stager's going to come, right? Because it's inviting someone into the home that's going to kind of redecorate. It is a very liberating and a tremendous experience. But, you know, Melissa, you're not bringing couches in, and, you know, people are afraid that what was the space that they knew and loved and lived in, that, you know, they raised their kids in, is suddenly going to be some horror show out of a scene from a movie with some, contemporary stylist coming in and putting, I'm trying to think of, there was a movie, right, where it was like, Beetlejuice. That was the movie, right?
Yeah.
They had a designer who came in and created this insane space. Like, that's not what staging is, right? Staging is, and the description that I often put out there is it's like an art director setting the stage for the best possible photos and the best possible presentation of the home. And decluttering is a huge part of it. Sometimes it's really simple things too, just kind of turning and moving some things, getting things that are blocking light away from things that are blocking light, putting color in places where, and the value of it, when we live in a space, we don't see stuff. We stop seeing things. Like, everybody has a broken doorknob in their house that they forgot was broken. Everybody has like something that's, chipped or broken or dinged or something that we just forgot. We don't notice it anymore. And then Melissa comes in and she points all that stuff out, because the buyer's going to see that. That's the one thing the buyer's going to see, is the broken doorknob. They're not going to see any of the other stuff. They're going to see that. And so that consultation versus actual design work is an important, I think it's an important distinction. Also, you mentioned things to do. So talk to us a little bit about, in a staging consultation, what can a seller expect? Are they going to be getting new kitchen recommendations? What's the scale of what's considered staging versus renovations?
Okay, sure. So earlier today, I did a staging consultation with one of your clients, and it was pretty simple. I went in, we went room by room, and a lot of the common themes that I had seen there is family photos were everywhere, which I understand. She's lived in that home for 35 years. Yeah. And it can be hard for someone to come in and say, now you have to take it all down. So explaining to them the benefit and why that's important, then they quickly understand and there's not an issue. So removing area rugs. Smaller area rugs. Some sellers have 4 area rugs in a foyer, and they have beautiful tile that they just installed the year prior. So I say, why are we hiding the tile? Let's just get rid of the area rug so they can see the beautiful floor.
Yeah.
So it's on a basic staging consultation where we're not having to do improvements. You'll hear me say declutter, which means like remove the knickknacks off the windowsill, clean the counters off, clean out the closets, remove the area rugs, take the sheets off the couches because you have 3 dogs and people don't want to see sheets on a couch when they're trying to buy the house. Little things like that. Or if they have a really wild colored shower curtain that's going to make the bathroom, the only bathroom they have on the first floor, smaller, we need to just get a neutral white shower curtain at $10 at Target. Small improvements like that. I do have some clients where they will say to me, listen, I know we have to renovate this bathroom and I don't know how to do it. Can you help me? And the answer is yes. I can help them design the new bathroom on whatever budget that they have for that space. I can even help them refer contractors to them and coordinating of that. So, you know, I run the full spectrum. I can come out and we can go over an hour, some quick updates to refresh your space, all the way to a renovation project to be able to increase the listing price of your home.
I love it. There's a really good question here, and it's one that even I have wrestled with. So what do you do when staging a vacant home? So nobody lives there. Maybe it's there's light decorations there. I know there are some virtual options, but what's something that you can bring to the table, or is that something that you really don't get involved in? I'm genuinely curious.
Sure. So I do offer full staging services for vacant properties. So I work with builders, flippers, people who have had to move out of their home and it's completely empty. So I will go in and I will furnish the space, whatever rooms that they need me to be able to bring life and some creativity into the space to appeal to buyers. So just to give you an idea for that, if I were to, because I know one of the questions was pricing, right? So how that works is I would go out, I would speak with the seller and go over a little bit what their budget is for the space on their timeline. And I typically recommend always a living room, a dining room, and a master bedroom if you're on, you know, a tight budget. I had recently a flipper who I had worked with who said, listen, we absolutely have to stage the basement. It's a nice entertainment area. I want to have it furnished. So for that project, we did a living room, master bedroom, master bath, dining room, kitchen, and a full basement. And for a 3-month lease, so all in at 3 months, it would be about $2,800 to $3,000.
Okay, that seems very reasonable. So, 3 months, about $1,000 a month for a fully decorated, like really looks lived in home. I mean, I will attest to the value of having, a furnished home when selling more than makes up for the cost in that type of a scenario. So, thank you for addressing that. I think this is another great question for you, Melissa. And it's one that, again, I field from clients all the time. Well, not everybody's in a position to move and buy a new home before they sell the one that they are living in. So if you are in a situation like me with 3 kids, and, let's just add some real chaos to it. 3 kids, couple dogs, maybe some cats and a parakeet, right? That you live in that house and you've still got to stage your home and get it ready for showings every day. Do you have any best practices? The question is, what are good practices to keep a home at the ready when you have kids?
That's a very good. So when I go out to do a staging consultation, I'll make 2 notes. I'll say to them, these are the recommendations I have of what you need to do prior to the photo shoot. After the photo shoot, you can X, Y, and Z back. That's one part. And then I'll say to them, this is what you need to do prior to a showing. Let's remove the dog bowls, the dog bed. We need to I always recommend all of the toiletries, all the personal items in a bathroom should go in like a shower caddy that we had when we were in college, or some type of Tupperware container, so that when you need to take a shower, shave, or whatever, you take it out. When you're done, you put it back and it goes in your vanity or your linen closet. So those are a few really important.
You give them like a checklist of what they need to do before. Yeah, that's smart. Yeah, I've seen, big toy bins, but the big Rubbermaid bins where it's like they come out and the kids can play and live in the house. Hey, showing everything in the bin, box it up out to the garage. So, I think that's a tremendous value too. So there are some best practices there. That's awesome. Thank you. Here's a good question. What are some small projects I can tackle now at home while in quarantine?
We can give you a whole list.
Oh, awesome.
Well, so first thing I like to do is paint refresh. When you have kids or dogs, there's always chips on the molding, the trim, which drives me absolutely crazy. So I'll be out with a brush, every couple of weeks, just touching it up. My husband thinks I have OCD, but looks good at the end of the day. So I would say touch up painting.
Yeah.
Start,
Yeah.
but don't say to yourself, this is where people get overwhelmed and then they'll not do it. Don't say, I'm going to touch up paint all over the first floor today. And it's just not going to happen. Just go room by room. So say to yourself, okay, today I'm going to tackle the kitchen. I'm going to do all the touch up painting. And then after that, you just work to the next room and then to the next floor. So touch up paint. Well, you know, it depends on the budget. Touch up paint, you could paint your new, you know, go into a bathroom. If you want to do a quick refresh in a powder room, you can paint the walls, new shower curtain.
I mean, I know one thing that I did in the last couple of weeks, which was, you know, it's been way overdue, is I literally went through file cabinets and just emptied out old bank statements and things
Yes.
7, 8, 10 years old. They all have to go anyway, and put them in a big bin to get them shredded. You know, because again, it's just, you don't necessarily see that stuff, but it adds to the clutter, because once those file cabinets are full, now you've got boxes or other stuff, right? So I started inside the drawers and started emptying stuff, getting rid of, I mean, that to me was inside in our house, that was a big relief. We went to old clothes for the kids and just started.
Yes, yes.
Because again, once the drawers get full, this stuff starts showing up in other places. The closet get more full. So it's just, that was a big plus for us. Here's another question, and then we'll move on. What are the popular paint colors? Are grays still really the in color? Is everything still in those cool tones, the blues and the grays? You know, back in when I bought my house in the early 2000s, it was all in they called them the warm tones, the tans and the beiges and the yellows. And now it seems like it's moved the other way. Is that still the case?
It is, but it's phasing out. So 2020, Benjamin Moore put out a color trend list, and you're starting to see warm colors come back, but warm neutral colors. So that means a very pale yellow or a pale blue. So you are seeing some new colors come out other than the white on white with black hardware, which in the next year, it's going to be over. You know, we need more personality, I think, in some of those spaces. So yes, adding small bits of color, accent walls is really important. And then I'm also working on designing bathrooms, smaller bathrooms with a bright, bold wallpaper. So
cool.
paper's coming back, and there's a lot of options on how to apply it. You can even do peel and stick wallpaper, which is super easy to take off if you want to, you know, change it up, and it's not expensive at all.
Well, very cool. I am very grateful to have you, you know, play a role in what we provide to our clients. I make the joke often that, you know, you don't want to ask me for design advice. Not only do I not know which colors are the right colors, but it's, you know, it's going to wind up being posters from college. In fact, you reminded me of clutter. My wife often tells me to put this away. This is from my old fraternity. It says, "I love to party at Phi Mu Delta." And she says this is clutter. I think it's essential, but anyway.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
see, so maybe you can help me later. Look.
Yeah, it's a koozie that I use for pens, but I think that's essential. But anyway, you know, 25 years old, that's definitely an essential piece of decoration in the office.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, well, moving on. So thank you very much, Melissa. So one of
You're
the other
welcome.
questions that we got was, what new tools are you using to show houses and keep in contact with clients? And I think that question really does speak to sort of how we have adapted in the new age here of COVID-19. And what I opened this dialogue about, which is, you know, really how proud I am of the team and how we have all adapted, everybody here. It is amazing what we've been able to accomplish using the technology tools. Everything from virtual open houses, virtual showings, virtual, you know, real estate closings, just events like this and seminars. So we have been very consistently able to show properties using technology tools like Zoom, just like this, where people can log in and watch a tour through a property, multiple people at a time. The ability to do live signings over, and I think, Rich, you can attest to this. We can now do, you can do closings over Zoom with a notary, right? Like you can actually notarize documents with somebody on the other side of a computer screen, which is, again,
Correct. Yep.
that's just fascinating. So, I mean, a lot of tools that really have been available to us for a long time. We just didn't take advantage of it and use them. So, really a lot of good stuff. Safe showings is another thing that I really want to address. And what a safe showing looks like and sounds like is, number one, everybody's got to have their own threshold for what they deem safe. You know, people with pre-existing conditions that could be, more negatively affected by, catching a virus, catching the virus, coronavirus, obviously need to have a very high level of safety. What we have done is really try to meet our clients where they're at. And we have some clients that are very comfortable going out with a mask, gloves, wearing booties, have no problem with that. And we have some sellers who are also absolutely comfortable with that. And what we try to do is limit any points of contact. So it really just means that if someone's going to be showing a home, that the doors would be open, the cabinet doors would be open, the closet doors would be open, so that they don't have to be making any physical contact other than where the bottom of the booty touches the floor as they're walking through the home. They're wearing masks, they've got gloves on, and then all of our agents are equipped with hand sanitizer in each of their vehicles, so that as soon as everybody leaves the home, then before they enter the home, they can hand sanitize, and then as soon as they leave the home, they can hand sanitize. So, so far this has been working out really, really well, and I think most of our clients are very comfortable with how we've adapted to and made them feel safe through the process. So, do you guys have anything to add to that? Any changes that have happened inside your world? I know, Rich, we talked at length about what's happening with closings. Any other thoughts on that? Melissa, you've been doing some virtual stagings. Is that correct?
I have, and they've been going very well. And I think the sellers really appreciate, us all becoming strategic and how we can continue to do business. And it's working. It's our temporary new normal.
Yeah, temporary new normal. And I like that. Awesome. All right. Thank you. So here's a couple of frequently asked questions. Do I need a realtor to sell my home? I mean, I'm a little bit, I'm not objective in answering that. The answer is yes, you should certainly have a realtor. There is no law that requires you to, but just like you don't need an attorney to represent you in court, you should have one. And it's simply because getting the experience of somebody who has done it as many times as a professional agent has done it is going to save you X times the amount of money that you would pay that professional to come and help you. So how do you figure out the value of your home? You contact a real estate agent and get an assessment. That is a market assessment. That's something where they're going to look at historically available data and trends, and they're going to determine what the likely value of your home is. That's the best way to figure out where you're likely to land. The actual value of your home is going to be determined once a buyer says that they're willing to write a check. So does assessed value have anything to do with market value? Actually, no. It's fascinating. Assessed value is a tool that the towns use to establish taxation rates. It's not done every year. It's done every couple of years. I don't remember exactly. I don't even know if it's the same standard across. Rich, do you know how often assessments are done?
Most towns it's every 5 years. Some it's every 4 years.
Yeah. So your assessment could be as old. It could be 4 years old. So it really has no bearing at all on what the current market value of your home is. It's just what your tax rate is based on. Should I price my home high so I have wiggle room for negotiations? Love that question. Great conversation for your real estate agent. That is a strategy conversation and a deeper one than there's any one single answer. It's not a yes or no answer. It depends on what your goal is. And so there are times when the market conditions would favor pricing your home high in order to test what kind of response you might get. And there are times when it's more favorable to price your home low. The reason you want to have a really good real estate agent is so that they can counsel you through what the impact of those different strategic avenues are. Why do I need staging consultation? I think we covered it because you might wind up with fraternity koozies in your house, and people don't buy houses with fraternity koozies.
And shag rugs.
Yes, shag rugs. Yeah, the wrong colors, warm colors instead of cool colors, et cetera. So how do you handle offers? Offers are presented. I mean, that's a great question. Let me present it this way. The seller of a home is always in charge. Like, I think that it's really important. I think sometimes sellers are nervous that they're going to be pushed or pressured, or that something's going to create an environment where they're not able to make the decision. That never happens. You, as the seller of the home or the owner of the home, you are in charge of the home. So when somebody says, how do you handle offers? Offers are presented to the seller with all the information that's relevant for that seller to make the best decision they possibly can about what the next strategic move is for them to make. So that's really the best way I can answer that. Should I hire the realtor with the lowest commission so that I make more money? You should hire the realtor that's going to provide you the best value for what you pay. Just like anything else. So if you can get the best realtor for the lowest price, you should hire that person. But commission isn't the actual determining factor. Lots and lots of terrible real estate agents will charge very little commission and you get what you pay for. You should hire the best agent that's the best fit for you. Mm-hmm. What marketing strategies do you use to sell my home? Great question. I think I covered that on one of the slides. It's not necessarily what the marketing avenues are, it's more what the agent will do with them. So social media campaigns are different from one company to another. Websites are different from one company to another. Strategies are different from one company to another. Some companies are much more boots on the ground, phone call prospecting businesses. Others are much more use, maybe websites or direct mail. And it really is, again, where do you think the best fit for you is with the real estate agent that you hire? So, oh, I like this question. What happens if my home doesn't appraise? The appraisal is often, if you're having an appraisal on your property, unless the purchase is a cash purchase and they have also written in an appraisal contingency. The appraisal is often part of the buyer's mortgage contingency process, which means in order for the buyer to close on the property at the price that was agreed upon, the house would have to appraise for that price. Now, an appraisal is a third-party assessment of the anticipated value of the home at a moment in time. And so sometimes homes don't appraise for the agreed upon sale price. When that happens, it doesn't necessarily mean that the house won't sell. It doesn't even necessarily mean that the house won't sell for what the price that's been agreed upon. It simply means that that contingency will not be able to be met by that particular buyer unless they change some of the terms and conditions under which they're prepared to buy the home. So this is, again, a very, very tricky situation where you absolutely want to have experts to help navigate it. Many, many times when this happens, it really does come down to the real estate agents navigating this process with a seller, preparing the options for the seller so that the seller can make the best decision for them. Sometimes that's going back on the market. Sometimes that's splitting some of the cost difference. Sometimes that's having the buyer come up with the additional money. And it can be any one of those situations. So how long on average does it take to sell a home in today's market? Tricky question, because today's market is unlike any market we've ever seen. On average, a house that is staged, priced right, and marketed correctly can go under contract in under a week to 10 days. In our climate, in Connecticut, some homes will sell in a single day. But on average, if you're really preparing a home that's priced right, accurately, really well staged, designed, and marketed, it'd take about a week to 10 days, maybe up to 3 weeks to a month on the outside. If it's taking longer, it usually is because one of those things has not been addressed properly. Staging or preparing the home in its design, the pricing is inaccurate or off, or there's some outside influencer like a pandemic that's causing the house to sit on the market for a while. So with all that said, let me just check the chat box. Guys, any final thoughts or comments before we wrap up here? No, everybody's feeling like they got to say their piece. Awesome. Awesome. Well, with that, I'm going to thank everybody here for joining us. This will be available for recording via recording and will be sent out to everybody who attended. We'll also be putting this up on the Meali Team Facebook page as a recorded version, so it can be shared. You can watch it. And I would just ask, if you have any questions at all, be sure to reach out to any one of us, and I'll get back to our contact info here. And let's see, there's everybody right there, and we should have everybody's contact info available, and we'll make sure that that's available with the recorded version. So my thanks for everybody. Thanks for coming. I hope this was great and helpful. We love having you, love to do it, and that's it. Talk to you soon. Thanks. Thanks, guys. Very much appreciate you all joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Rich. Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Matt. Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.